Colorism has been the subject of emotive debate on social media this week. Unfortunately, it's discrimination based on skin color, and it's the focus of our book review this week. The book is called Yellowbone by Ekow Duker, and it takes us to Mthatha, and it tells the story of Karabo, a young girl born with a lighter complexion. And now her skin tone was both a privilege and a curse. Joining me in studio to talk more on this book is our book reviewer, Phathu Musitha. Phathu, very good morning.
Good morning.
I'm almost right, eh?
Yeah, it's quite right.
Okay, Phathu. Thank you so much. Now, let's talk about this, the book itself. Now, this book is exploring belonging, injustice, and also identity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. So there's a big underlying theme on identity, and you mentioned, for the purpose of this conversation, let's call it the main protagonist, Karabo. So Karabo, if you think back to 2 years ago in the news, we saw the story of Karabo Mokoena, who was murdered and burnt by her partner. So the story of Karabo here in the book was inspired by that, because when that happened, the then Minister of Police made comments about how can they kill such a beautiful, light-skinned woman. So Ekow wrote the book based on that because he found it quite intriguing. So the theme of identity in this book, it's a theme that Ekow carries quite thoroughly from beginning and until the end. So
yeah. Now, her journey is quite interesting. She's born in Mthatha, and then she goes to, her father is from Ghana as well. She moves around a lot, and so many things happen to her, and most people will think she has an advantage because of her skin tone, which is very unfortunate. But those are some of the themes that I explored in the book as well.
Yeah, so you're talking about light skin privilege, which is something that in society we are aware exists, and it's part of the reason why he wrote about it. And we've seen in South Africa how, say for instance, you'll find that light-skinned women will be thought to be the default beauty standard, which is a very Eurocentric thing. And also they will have better access to certain things, certain positions, and say even in terms of relationships.
I mean, Karabo moves to the UK, she studies architecture, but things are different for her in the UK than they are in South Africa.
Yeah, quite different. I mean, you find in the UK that she meets a partner whose mother is white and he's white. So in that, Ekow now explores interracial relationships, and Karabo now experiences the opposite, where she's dating in a family where black people are thought to be lowly, and there's quite a significant amount of ignorance from her partner's mother, where, as we're reading the book, we realize that she blurts out all sorts of insults and things where if you're there, like, you don't even know how to react. Yeah. Do you run out? Do you retaliate? What do you say? So Karabo was the subject of such conversation and such insults, and that's where we start to see the story take quite an interesting turn.
A well-written book?
Definitely. I think it's very well written. It's very clear. As you're reading, you're not at all confused. Ekow explored quite a number of themes, from identity and belonging, like we spoke about earlier, but also betrayal and also mental illness. So and homosexual relationships. And I liked how he explored them in a way that humanizes them, in a way that does not other them, in a way that does not make a mockery of any of the themes that he spoke about. So there's great detail. It's entertaining from beginning to end. It's a page turner, and I remember when I read it in a day. But it was also because
you read fast.
I sometimes, when I'm enjoying a book, I go all the way in, even if it means I sleep fewer hours.
What are your thoughts on this colorism issue? I mean, it's discrimination, you know, amongst ourselves, isn't it? And it's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, and I think we can trace it back to history. We can trace it back to where it comes from. I mean, we've had colonialism in certain regions. There's been slavery. there's also been apartheid here, and that was not without effect. It's something that people suffered for a long time, where if you pass the paper bag test, which is where they put the paper bag here, and if you lighter than, good for you. You get all the privileges. But if you're darker than and you're of darker complexion, such as myself, then the inverse is correct for you. And I think it's a very important conversation to have, and hopefully it is thought-provoking.
Do you think it's a conversation we should be even having in the first place? Because what matters should be surely your talent and everything else that comes along with it. Who cares whether you're light or dark? Why should we even be talking about it? Who cares?
In an ideal world, that would be the case, where your talent speaks for you, and it's not your looks, it's not your complexion. But because we are not there, those conversations need to be had. They're still very important until we are in a position where that is irrelevant. Yeah. So I think we need to also be aware of all the psychological effects that people suffer because they have been abused for being darker by their parents, by families, by society at large, where they are not picked.
What role do men play in all this?
I think men
are the problem.
They're perpetuators, right? So I don't think we can deny that.
Yeah.
And not every man, but we do see men who are very problematic, who are very ignorant, who still choose to fall within the Eurocentric ways of selecting. So there's a long conversation to be had, and I think it's important that this conversation is taking place. And we shouldn't diminish anybody's ideas, and even if we see someone suffering from something like self-hate, I think self-hate and the conversation around it should be normalized. People should not be ashamed of being ashamed because they are darker skinned and they have certain feelings towards it.
It is self-hate, unfortunately. Phathu, thank you so much for coming through, reviewing the book. It's called Yellowbone by Ekow Duker. Ekow Duker is the African author?
Yes, he is. He's from Ghana.
From Ghana.
Yes.
Ekow Duker. Thank you. Fantastic stuff.